Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Bikes for Death podcast. As always, my name is Patrick, and I am your host. And on today's episode, I'm talking with Jay Petervary, who is a member of our community that likely needs no introduction. Jay first rode the Tour Divide in 2007, and he has been making waves in the bikepacking world ever since. His latest project was to ride the entire Great Divide mountain bike route that, as of 2018, now starts in Jasper, Canada, which adds about 500 miles onto the route that we currently know as the Tour Divide that starts in Banff. And there's a little bit of history behind the Tour Divide, the Great Divide mountain bike route, and it all ties into Jay's purpose and reasoning for wanting to do this ride. He titled it Unearthed, and it was a project that he worked on for many years. He had a cool bike built, a unique bike. He had fundraising efforts surrounding it, and he put a lot of time and attention into setting the fastest known time on the Great Divide mountain bike route, the whole thing, which now is 3,080 miles. Unfortunately, about 2,000 miles into his ride, Jay was struck from behind by a motorist in broad daylight on a clearly visible road. He was struck from behind at about 2,000 miles into his ride, halfway through Colorado, thus ending his ride and beginning his road to recovery. So in today's episode, we are catching up with Jay. We are hearing from him about the tragic event that happened to him, about his injuries, about his recovery, and of course, about him coming back to revisit Unearthed sometime in the future. I wish there was some kind of happy bow to tie on to this episode, but the reality is that as cyclists, we are vulnerable and we are in a world that is not set up or designed for us. And Jay getting hit by a motorist is a sober reminder of the danger that is out there, the danger that we face, and how vulnerable we are as cyclists. So while that isn't a fun conversation, it is an important one, and it's an important reminder, and we're lucky that Jay is still with us and he's able to share his story and he's able to tell us about it. And I'm really glad that he is. I absolutely enjoyed this episode. It was really nice to have him on the podcast for the first time. And I am looking forward to seeing him back on the bike as soon as possible and wishing him all the best in his recovery. Now, before we get to today's episode, let's take a moment to thank the people that made it possible, starting with our latest patron. So this week, we would like to thank Andy Field, I think. Yes, we'd like to thank Andy Field for signing up to be a sustaining member of the Bikes for Death podcast. These podcasts take a lot of work, and they're not possible without the support of this wonderful community. So if you would like to help support and produce these episodes, you can find out more over at patreon.com/Bikes for Death. All right, and today's episode is also brought to us by a new advertising partner. I'd like to tell you about Fred Bars. If you don't know about Fred Bars, they are solving one of the biggest problems that we face as ultra-endurance cyclists, bike packers, and bike tours, and that is comfort. I don't know about you, but on long rides, 100, 200 plus miles, I deal with severe hand pain, hand and wrist pain. It's always been my Achilles heel, so to speak. And it's something that I've just gotten used to. I've just learned to accept that, hey, I'm just always going to have hand pain. But that is exactly where Fred Bars comes in, because they were designed to help solve the problem by opening up different riding positions for bike packers and endurance cyclists. So what the Fred Bar is a small mounting bar that attaches to your steer tube above the stem. And when installed, it creates a mounting platform for your aero bars that is designed to put long distance riders in a much more comfortable and favorable position for long days in the saddle. It does this by bringing the aero bars a little higher and a little bit closer to the rider. Remember that the objective here is comfort and not being aero. So a fun fact is that Fred bars was originally invented for the very first Tour Divide ride in 2008, and it's been used by tons of Tour Divide riders ever since. If you're interested in learning more about that, I've linked an article in the show notes. You can find it on our website as well that tells you more about the Fred bars story. So if you are like me and you experience hand pain, wrist pain, shoulder pain, or numbness on long rides, or if you just want to be more comfortable, I highly recommend that you check out the Fred bars. It's an easy solution to one of long distance cycling's greatest problems, comfort. So to learn more and to check them out for yourself, head over to fredbars.com and don't be shy to let them know that Bikes for Death sent you. And remember, Fred bars, so you can ride your damn bike in comfort. All right, ching, ching, ching. The bills have been paid, and now it is time to get to my chat with Jay Petervary. One quick note about the formatting of today's episode is we are going to start today's conversation with his injuries and the accident and what happened. I think that is the predominant thing that people are going to want to know about. I polled my patrons prior to Jay coming on and getting a sense for what kind of questions were out there in the community, and obviously a lot of concern about what happened, how was Jay hit, why was Jay hit, what can we learn from this? And so that's where the conversation starts. But of course, we're going to talk about his bike. We're going to talk about his Great Divide mountain bike run. We're going to talk about him coming back. We're going to talk about some of the history of the Tour Divide and bikepacking and all kinds of good stuff. Again, it was my distinct honor and privilege to have Jay Petervary on the podcast. I'm so grateful that he's here and we can even have this conversation. But I'm happy to see that he is on his road to recovery and riding his damn bike again one day soon. All right. Well, thanks for tuning in. Now here's Jay. All right. Well, Jay, my first question for you is, how do you pronounce your last name? Is it Petervary or Petervary?
Yeah, just like it's spelled. It's Petervary.
Petervary. Okay. Well, in that case, I'd like to apologize because I've been pronouncing it wrong forever. I always call you Petervary. So I was listening to you and Rebecca Rush did a Instagram live prior to your Unearthed, and she knows you better than I do, and she called you by Jay Petervary, and I was like, I might have that one wrong.
Yeah, it's funny how people want to try to add some sort of other, I don't know what it is. They want to articulate it differently than what it's spelled.
We want to make it fancier.
Just do that naturally with last names, right? They just try to make it more complicated.
I know. I struggle with it. So are you still in Driggs, Idaho area?
I'm in Victor. Yeah.
Victor.
Yeah. So we refer to I generally call it Teton Valley if I'm explaining it to somebody. And then we just kind of include Victor and Driggs when we say that. But as a town, I live on the south end of the valley, which is Victor.
Oh, gotcha. How long have you been in that area?
Oh, gosh. I moved to Jackson, so just over the hill in 2000. And then we spent about 10 years over there. And then we popped over the hill and bought this place in 2010.
I gotcha.
So,
do you know my friend Ash Alexander used to live in Driggs, Idaho. I think he was there for about 10 to 15 years. He is a cyclist. He's not dead. He's just in New York now.
Yeah. Doesn't ring a bell. I mean, I'm good with names and I've been around with the cycling culture, obviously, for a long time and just floating around. But yeah.
I was out riding bikes.
It's pretty special.
Oh, it is. Yeah. He and I rode. I was there in, I want to say 2018 or 2019. And the whole time we were riding around or just driving around, I was in the town. We were always looking for you. He's like, every once in a while you'll see Jay, pedaling around. So I never saw you. I never ran into you, but we always had our eyes peeled when we were out there, riding around the area. Well, Jay, I wish that we were meeting under better circumstances, but I really do appreciate you coming on the podcast and being willing to kind of share your story and what's been going on. So first of all, I just wanted to extend my condolences for the injuries and the disappointing end to your ride and your big project. But again, I just appreciate you coming on to share what's been going on.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Let's dive right into current events, man. I mean, there's an intro part to this podcast, so everyone I think will be kind of up to date with the fact that you were hit by a motorist while you were out on your unearthed ride. I just want to start at the beginning. Like, where are you at today? We're about 30 days after the wreck. What injuries have you sustained? What are you going through surgeries? Like, what does your life look like right now?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the dirty part's over with as far as things go for right now. I broke a humerus, and that got plated, a few days after I got hit. And then I had a wrist that needed to be put back together, so it's got some hardware in it, and that was done like a week after I was hit. And then I do have a broken L2, kind of fracture down the center. The fortunate part of that is there's no little pieces floating around. Nothing got into my spinal canal or anything like that. So like nerve wise, I feel good, but like there's nothing you could do with that. It's just got to heal on its own. And I'd say like right now, that's kind of like the worst of the injuries. It's definitely the one that's kind of just like making it uncomfortable. I don't want to say things are still painful. Things are pain is relative, and it's certainly that way at the beginning, but now it's just very uncomfortable. Everything is really uncomfortable, but the back is like, it's making my lower back tighten up and things like that. And sleeping is just absolutely horrible, a couple hours at a time type of thing. I just can't get comfortable. I mean, I have to wear this thing like, 7 days a week, 24/7. So just getting comfortable is kind of tough. And my energy levels are higher than they were the first couple of weeks. I was definitely like kind of bedridden, just on the couch. Body's doing its thing, and then on top of it, being on top, having painkillers and drugs and everything else, you're just kind of like you're out of it, right? So I would say I'm through all that, and like I said, my energy level's higher. So I'm walking around and just like trying to stay busy. And not get frustrated. It's definitely challenging for me. I'm not one to sit still, and I have a lot of other projects going on. I'm usually doing something physical, and I can't really lift much with either arm right now. So that's kind of like, so I'm kind of just like messing around, doing some micro organizing of things that I can kind of mess around. My workshop has never been so clean, but and. Honestly, I'm lucky that all my injuries in theory should heal. Okay. And I've done some follow-up. So right now I'm in that follow-up phase of like post-op and getting regular x-rays, but not starting PT yet. And so I'm kind of looking forward to that step, because then I can actually start doing some movements and things.
Yeah.
So, it's just slow at this point.
Yeah. How has, and I mean, this is kind of an ambiguous question a little bit, but how has, being an athlete, and specifically an endurance athlete that's used to dealing with hard and sustained efforts, how do you think that is helping your recovery at all? Maybe even from like a mental standpoint, but do you think that has any impact on what you're going through?
Yeah, I understand there's a side of injury, especially with an athlete and a serious injury, where it's easy for me to get like mad if I let it. Like I can easily be like, oh, that kid, like, why did I get hit? Like, I felt I was in the safest spot. This is seems unfair. Like, right. That's easy to go into that space if I let it. It's easy to be like, get frustrated because like, I can't finish the remodel I'm doing. I can't do the yard work I want to do physically, and I just like to do all this stuff physically all the time. I'm just that way. And I can't even really like, I can't write right now. And so there's all these like things, that it would be easy to get frustrated. And so like, I know this and I need to stay positive. And I think that goes along with like any long distance event, right? Like, racing long distance has taught me patience, like never before, in a big, big way. And through the years, like I wasn't always patient in long distance either, but through the years, and even to this day, I gain more patience. I'm more relaxed. I look at challenges or hiccups in an event or a situation I'm in. I look at it differently and more calmly than I used to. And so I think that's helping with this, and just accepting it, right? Like I've talked to a lot of people that have been injured and just people that are in this situation, and just people I'm consulting with as well. And they're like, dude, like you're going to have to deal, like it's going to get frustrating and this and that. And like, and recognizing that is one thing. And now I need to do it. And I am going through it. And like,
yeah, it's easy to say, right? It's easy to say, but it's like,
and people are asking like right now, like daily, and I'm like, I'm just starting to get frustrated, right? Like with like wanting to do things. But I'm close to getting to my time of starting physical therapy. So yeah, I mean, I think so.
yeah.
In short, I think like my racing and my long distance, like mental attitude, fortitude is helping with this for sure.
Yeah.
Still not easy, challenges are challenges. And that's just how it is.
It's also interesting. I mean, there's no way to know for sure, but how much being in shape, having an active and a strong body and a strong mind will help from the second you got hit to, also through your recovery,
Yeah. I mean, I think about those things and, I don't take my physical conditioning or my attitude or just my makeup for granted. Like I am who I am and I feel really good about it. I work hard at what I am and physically and stay conditioned and things like that. And but I definitely like I think back at that accident or even the times I was in the hospital and just like dealing with the pain. I haven't had surgery yet, but like I'm forcing myself and like making myself get up and getting my legs underneath me to like sit myself up so I could stand up. And like, I think about that and I'm like, somebody with like just not as strong, not as determined, just isn't going to be doing this right now. Like, I know that. And I've had other injuries in my past where like, the doctor's like, you'll be doing something in 8 to 12 weeks or something. And, I generally look at that time and I'm like, I want to cut that in half. And that's just how I am. And even when I'm with my consulting, when people, for bikepacking, like people approach me and say, I want to do this event or I want to go to ITI or something. And they have like this goal of like 3 years or something. And I'm immediately like, let's cut that in half. Like, we'll get you there. Mm-hmm. And I think that's just kind of the attitude you have to kind of like really get some things done. And also like kind of keep yourself accountable to a certain level, because it's easy to kind of get like a little lax. It's easy for me to like start drinking more and hanging out. Just all of these other things that aren't good.
Right.
So like, just having that mind, like, like this is a hard day and this is a slow day because I can't do much, but I still need to be like on it somehow with recovery always in my mind.
Yeah.
It's tricky.
I can totally see that because I mean, it is kind of, I don't know about for you, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but having events, having, scheduled bike rides, training, those are habits that help keep us healthy, right? Mentally and physically healthy, and kind of keep us away from, drinking too many beers at night, or, it's like, it keeps you in check. It keeps your diet in check. It's like, I'm doing all this work and I don't want to offset it by all this negative behavior and patterns. But like in lieu of that, without that as a carrot to kind of work for, I hadn't considered that, but being, how much easier would be to slip into just negative patterns, life patterns,
Yeah, or not doing things every day. I try to do things that are somewhat productive to me, and even just like looking at things and visualizing some space, because I am doing some remodel where I got to move some down. It's this time of year. But then when I have an able body, I could be like, hey, man, can you help me with this? And this is what I want to do. This here, this there, this there. And at least my brain is working, right? And like I'm thinking about things that's somewhat productive. I mean, I'm just starting to turn to the computer. I'm just starting to like do some planning and work on my Fat Pursuit event in camp. So like, uh, I have some things. And so at the end of the
Yeah.
day, it's like something, because
Yeah.
it can go south too quickly and easily, I think.
Yeah.
And especially when the bike is like, truly, the bike is like, I mean, it's medicine for me, like, right? Like it's an outlet for me. Like it's not mentally healthy for me to not ride my bike. And
Yeah.
that's just how it is.
I I was just having a conversation with my girlfriend a few days ago, and I was a little personal insight, but I recently decided to wean myself off of like SSRIs for like social anxiety. I've been taking a medication for years now for anxiety, and I'm like, you know what, I'm in a good place. I'm gonna try to get off this shit. And as a result, you go through withdrawals, and they can be pretty extreme and pretty like debilitating in of themselves. And as I'm going through this process, I'm feeling like really unwell. But I know there's like a light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak. But I'm telling her, I'm like, when you feel sick, when you feel off, as somebody who gains so much value from being outside, from pushing my body, from riding bikes, to not be able to do that is, I don't even know how to articulate it, but it's challenging. It's so hard to be stuck in your body, in this body that you're used to feeling capable and confident in, and feeling kind of stuck, and like, and it doesn't feel good. It's scary. It's uncomfortable. You don't have the outlet that you normally have to pursue to help you deal with the things that, you're struggling with. So I can only imagine what, you're going through with a much more prolonged recovery ahead of you,
Yeah. And that's another thing too. I can't get stuck with trying to look too far down the road. I can't look too far ahead because I don't even know what that looks like.
Yeah, that's daunting.
Yeah.
What is that's daunting. Well, tell us what do you know about your recovery? What do you hope that looks like? What's the plan?
Yeah, I mean, it's like I can't say it enough, but I'm super thankful and lucky that like all my injuries, like they're broken bones, like broken bones heal. I mean, in theory, I should be fine. Like we don't think I have like soft tissue damage. Like, I'll find out a little more with like rotator to see if I did anything there. But like, there's not a lot of suspicion there. And like, same thing with my back. Like I don't have nerve damage. So like these things should heal. And like bones typically heal. Like any doctor's going to tell you, okay, 12 weeks, you should be back to doing things. So, where does that put me? Like I would, hopefully in December, like I'm doing some like decent physical work, whether that's at the gym or whatever. But like, yeah, I want to be skiing this winter for sure. And I will. So yeah, I mean, and I'm saying that now, hoping like nothing develops with my back and things like that. Just being optimistic, but like, that's kind of how bones work, so I just have to look at it that way and just like, okay, hopefully there's no soft tissue damage and the bones will heal. 3 months later, I should be skiing and riding bikes and riding winter bikes.
Yeah. What is, I'm not a medical person. What is soft tissue damage? Like how specifically would that impact your ability to recover?
Yeah, so broken bones are easy. Like we can look them up with X-rays and CT scans, and like that's what sees like the bones. We could see like their positioning and they're cracked and this and that. So we fix that. So when we talk about soft tissue damage, we're talking about like maybe ligaments, torn, stretched, or things like that, muscle damage. Like we can't see that stuff in an X-ray, but we can see that in an MRI. And in general, general practices, like there's going to be signs of like soft tissue damage, meaning like you can't move your arm at all, or there's nerve damage. So then they want to see MRI, and then we can look at kind of soft tissue stuff. But it's also like, it's like you got to put the horse before the cart, right? So like before we can even consider soft tissue damage, we really need to get the bone to heal. Mm-hmm. Because then once the bone's healed, then we could start PT and start moving properly. Like right now, I'm not even allowed to move my wrist. So I don't know, like we're not even messing with ligaments yet. So we wait for those things. And that's like kind of the process of it. So it's like, yeah, they have some good intel just by the way you're moving and what you're doing, but you don't know until the bones are healed. Now you start the movements. And so it's a little bit of a limbo and a question for sure. But all things lead to like, yeah, Jay, like you're going to be okay. Like when they looked at my back, they're like, yeah, dude, like you broke your back, but like, it's probably like maybe the best break you can have, if that means anything.
It means something. I mean, at this stage, at this stage, you're like, well, I wish I didn't get hit by a kid on the car, but since I did, I'm glad that I'm going to heal, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm curious how you're handling the doctor's orders. So, I mean, let's talk about recovery, because like, I assume there's a couple things at play here. One, you want to, speed up that process as fast as possible and recover as fast as possible. I have to assume the other side of that is you want to recover as well as possible, which means taking care of your body, maybe listening to your doctors. How are you managing that balance of listening to your doctors, not pushing it too hard, but also trying to recover as fast as possible?
Yeah, so I certainly will listen to a doctor. And I like to, I'll listen to anybody and everyone, and just however I digest that and take that is up to me.
Sure.
And I also know like every individual is completely different. And I also know when a doctor's delivering information, they're kind of giving you almost worst case scenario. And so, and I also know a lot of times when they're like kind of giving you something, it's like, yeah, dude, wear that because you need to protect yourself, because you can't have an accident. I mean, it doesn't mean I can't take it off and be careful. So I'm probably going to like go against the rules a little bit when it comes to the doctor, because like, I feel I have a really good mind to body awareness, and I'm really in touch with my own body and my own self, my own limits. And so, and I've had other injuries, unfortunately, that has helped me with that, and to know my body and to know about PT and rehab. And like, there's a difference between like feeling uncomfortable and pain. Like, you don't want to do PT to the point where it's painful.
Right.
But you could do it. So it's going to be uncomfortable. That's just how it is. You got to work through and get these range of motions back that you lost. Like my arm went to like toothpick size in the past month. Like I'm literally like lost a bunch of like muscle already. And so, but I'll work on building that up. And so, yeah, I mean, like I said, I listen to the doctor, but I'm still going to do what I do. And hopefully I'm doing it and like not doing more damage, I mean, I don't have an ACL. Like, so I've had these different injuries in the past where like I really rely on my own inner energy, my own mind. Like, I had an ACL that I blew out in the mountains, and my knee buckled all the way back from skiing. And like, I was told to get like ACL surgery by several doctors. One said, hey man, just to let you know, there's people without them. So now I don't have one because like someone told me not all people have it. And so I went and did the work and to not having ACL. And I actually walked across Alaska like a month later. And I did the same thing with like my ankle. And I've also had surgeries. So like I've come out of those from doctor's orders. And that's just experience stuff and really me knowing myself and not being scared of these certain situations or feelings. The first time you have a break, every little thing you're going to be worried about, every little feeling.
Yeah.
But as you have breaks, that there's this feeling that's going to happen. And it's almost like the same with bike pack. Like I relate so much to my racing, right? And what I do long distance wise. It's like so many people are familiar with like 3 and 4 and 5 days and how that feels, pushing themselves. Many people have that. People can take holidays, vacation, weekend warriors, and you can experience an event pushing your own body, however, whatever that means to you. But now you could become familiar with this space of what it means to push for 3 days, what it means to push for 4, 5. Not many people can afford the time to get beyond that, right?
Yeah.
In reality. And so then we start these, so then we have this just like, let's use it as an example, bucket list event, Tour Divide. Bucket list. Everybody wants to do it. But they all have these experiences with 3, 4, and 5 days. Then you do that. Now all of a sudden, your body is doing something different on 6, 7, and 8 that you're just unfamiliar with. You're nervous about it. You're scared about it. You don't know how to deal with it. You don't know how to back off. And so you enter that, and then we're like, how you react to it the first time you have that experience is different than how you react to it the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 10th time you've had that experience. And that's the same thing with like me going through my injuries. I've had some experience, familiar with these feelings. It's not friggin' great, but it is what it is. So now how do you get through it? On day 5 of an event, day 6, like my Achilles and knees hurt just like everyone else's. I'm not going to talk about it. I'm going to get through it because I've been through it before and just like, no, this is going to be a shitty day because this hurts. Okay, been here. I need to get to day 7 so it doesn't hurt anymore. And I think it's the same thing with the recovery process.
Yeah.
But I do so much like comparison and just like analogies that way because it's my life.
Yeah. I mean, I relate almost everything through, endurance efforts. For us, it's usually bike packing. Then you can draw a lot of analogies between, the effort of life and the struggles that life will throw at you and the curveballs that life will throw at you. And the same thing that when you plan a 3,000-mile bike ride, things are going to go wrong, or a 500-mile bike ride. It really doesn't matter, but it rarely goes perfectly. And it does teach you patience. It teaches you attrition, and it teaches you to rely on yourself, which is a tie into what we're talking about here is, and if I hear what you're saying correctly, it's like there's 2 things. There's one, there's the doctor's advice. So you're listening to your doctor, but then you're also listening to yourself, and it's something, my father passed away from cancer about 12 years ago. And he went to many doctors over years and was like, hey, there's something wrong with me. And the doctors kind of blew him off. And they didn't finally, until like 2 years after going to the doctor, they finally diagnosed him with stage 4 cancer. And one of the things I took away from that was to be your best advocate. Like, what's going on inside your body, and doctors have great information. I'm not blaming the doctors or anything. It's like, but they have one prism that they're looking at your injuries and you as a human through. But the other factor here is like, you and yourself and your body better than anybody else. And unfortunately for you with injuries, what it's like to recover from injuries too. And so it sounds like you're, taking both information and doing the best you can with it.
Yeah, it's a way of life, really.
Yeah, like around every single turn. What's more challenging, riding the Tour Divide or dealing with insurance companies?
Dude, the insurance is ugly. Like, like that's a mess. Like, it's not a fun piece of this whole thing. And I don't know if people realize that. And it's like starting to come out, like, right? Like I'm having to start to deal with it. Like I've seen some doctors, I've been in the hospital, like stuff's coming in the mail. I'm getting the phone calls, right? Like, and it's the only the beginning. And it's not a good part at all, honestly. And it honestly kind of sucks. Our system sucks. And you don't realize how much so until you're in the situation. And then when you think you have insurance and how much it doesn't really cover, or when you think like, yeah, but like, it's not my fault. Like, I didn't like, it's clearly on the police report that it wasn't my fault. The kid got charged, he got a ticket, but like his medical insurance isn't covering me. Like, right. Like, and so there's this,
or
like,
what about his auto insurance,
Yeah. What about his auto insurance? And like, most people run around with the minimum liability policy, which is like, that wouldn't cover, barely a trip to the ER for an abrasion on your knee.
Yeah.
So the scale of it just doesn't work in an accident like this. His coverage isn't working for me. And that sucks. And even for like damages to property. Like I had a custom bike built. We all know what this stuff costs. And none of it's cheap, but like, his property damage doesn't meet to like what even my bike is worth.
Yeah.
And like, where does that come down on me? So I have to like fight through my insurances to have this done. Like, it's just, the system's like, it's horrible. And then when you talk about like, yeah, I got lost time. I'm losing time from work. I've had to cancel trips. Like I'm delayed on this like remodel that I'm doing. I'm having to spend more money than I need to be spending right now. It all starts to add up. At first you're like, yeah, but like, no, every time, like, I'm spending money right now. I'm not making money. And like just the whole thing of it, all the logistics, all that stuff starts to add up. And it's like, it's a bummer. I mean, because like the person at fault isn't really going to have anything to deal with, honestly. I'll have to deal with all this, but the kid deals with nothing. And it's super frustrating. And that's where I can start to get frustrated and mad and angry. And like, like, is there any even compensation for this? Like, is my back going to be injured forever? Am I done? Like, I don't know, but like, I'm not going to like get anything for any of this. Like, it's a bummer, like, and like, I can't like go off and talk too much about it. And of course I've had to hire an attorney because it's a mess and all that stuff. Like, this is not a fun part for me. Like I didn't want to do this. I don't want to be doing this. Like,
no.
Yeah. And it's like, it's the ugly part. But it's the reality part too.
Yeah. It's, I mean, I fortunately have not ever had to deal with anything on the scale that you are. But the reason I asked the question, it wasn't in jest. I'm aware of how terrible our system is, whether it's auto insurance or medical insurance. And I'm well aware that, I mean, I don't know your financial situation, but most Americans, if they're caught in a situation like this, it's not good. I mean, why, everybody goes to GoFundMe. I mean, there's these memes that are around, right? It's like our insurance policy, our medical insurance policy in America is GoFundMe, because we don't have the insurance that is willing to cover us. We have all the medical care in the world, but getting it paid for is a huge, huge issue in our society and in the American system. And I know that you're dealing with it, and I don't know exactly to what degree, but I wanted to I wanted to reach out on behalf of the community and open the door to say, hey, is there anything that we can do for you? Is there anything that we as a community can do through this period of recovery for you?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like this has just come up this past week, and it's not like this is not this is a hard part for me because I'm not good at asking for help. One, I'm not good at asking for help in general. And I'm certainly not good for asking for like when it comes to financial. Like I am, call me a little old school, if you will. Like I've been going to the bank for years and borrowing money. Like it's just how it is. Like I've opened up businesses and I go to the bank and like whatever. Like that's just how it is. And I've never really understood these different platforms for raising money, honestly. And it's just because I've never been in a situation. I've just always done my own thing when it comes to financial. And then this past week, like I've been approached by several people and some good friends, and they're just like, hey, Jay, like I've had someone like, dude, is there a GoFundMe around and this and that? And I've been asked, and I had an event happen this past week, and they're like, Jay, we're doing this gravel event, dude. You've been so great. We want to help raise some money. And like, I'm just like caught in this place, and I'm just like, and someone's like, well, I'll start that. I'm like, and it's like, it's nothing that, you know, I'm not going to start a GoFundMe for me. You know what I'm saying? Like, and so when I'm asked, it's just like, I ignore the subject. It's just kind of weird for me. But this past week, it's certainly been a topic for sure. And like, I'm also realizing at this point, like it's an outlet that I'm going to need is what it comes down to. And I need to accept that. I mean, besides being like, accepting like that this kid just like ran me over and like really changed my life. Like now I need to accept like, yep, I can't do all the chores at my house. I can't finish my building projects. I can't even like think about work because I'm so distracted and like, okay, what's next? I got to take care of myself. Well, you know, then there's this other financial piece. Like, and so like, that's just kind of, I'm going in circles here, but like, yeah, Patrick, like I'm in that space now. And like, I don't know like where that's going to sit and where that goes. I have a feeling like something's going to pop up. It's like I said, I'm not comfortable asking for help that way. And like, I'm not going to like be the one that like,
initiates,
you know, initiates. Exactly.
Yeah. I totally relate to that. I think most people relate to that. I hope you know, especially in this space of solo self-supported, right? Like, I don't think any of us are too quick to pick up the phone and ask for help. One thought I had as you were speaking is like, I was thinking about the other things that we accept as cyclists that we have no control over. And one of them is the infrastructure, you know, cycling infrastructure, the lack thereof. Laws to protect cyclists, laws to punish motorists for hitting cyclists. And we, you know, these are all like, as I talk about them on the podcast, like there's these things that we just have to accept. This is the world we live in. And as I'm listening to you, I'm thinking about, you know, like, yes, I hear what you're saying, but also, yes, you were doing what you loved in a world and a system that was set up not by you, and the insurance stuff isn't your fault. You know, like you really are 100% a victim here on every single level. And asking for help is never fun, but also like, it's not like you put yourself in this position. You didn't go out and do something reckless. You didn't, I don't know. You didn't do anything wrong is what I'm saying, you know? And so it is hard to see like you having to carry the brunt of everything when you're only a victim of circumstance and a system that we all live in. We could all be Jay Petervary or Petervary. I see I did it again. But we could. We're all cyclists. We're all vulnerable. Any one of us could get hit by a car and be in your exact same position. And so I very much relate to what you're saying, being I'm 43, I'm a little bit older, and I'm a little old school too. And I couldn't imagine I grew up in a generation like my mommy and daddy didn't give me a penny. They kicked me out of the house at 17. They're like, good luck, buddy. I hope you land on your feet, and you got to figure it out, man. There's no golden parachute. There's no bailout. There's no get out of free jail card. So I understand your struggle. I understand what you're going through, but I can tell you as a member of the community, and I think I speak for many of us, I'm sure a lot of us would like to help, you on your path to recovery, and it's just like a small thing that we can do to help, and the same way. And I think in some ways we do it for us, right? Because like we see us and you, and whenever a member of our community is struggling, I think this community does a very good job of like trying to help and step in. And I'll echo what other people have said. You've done a lot. You've given a lot to this sport and this community. And so wherever you land on that is up to you, but that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, no, thanks. I appreciate it for sure. Like I said, it's just like, it's hitting home. It's a current topic.
Yeah.
But,
all right, well, we'll see where.
Yeah, and it's like the other side to it too. Like you were just starting to mention like the infrastructure and all that and the safety, and like, I'm not necessarily done with the project either, and I don't know what it's going to be moving forward. I can't just kind of abandon the ride and the project in general. And I don't know what that means. Like, there were so many moving pieces with the project. And a lot of them had me really excited, whether it was like, the new idea behind the bike and the setup. And that's always super interesting to me. But then, the sharing the film component with being it self shot and bringing out all this history of the route and the people out there and ACA, Adventure Cycling Association, like all that was super meaningful. And then being involved with the Be Good Foundation and raising like a bunch of money for scholarships to give away. And that's still like, that's like something we need to do a call out for now, is like for applicants to apply. We raised well over $10,000. And so that money's just like being given away for scholarships, and we want people to apply. We're like, it doesn't matter whether it's like you want to achieve a backyard ride or go to an event, or sky's the limit. It could be as small or as big as doing something as the Great Divide Route or whatever, and we can help with that, whether it's like a financial with equipment or travel or whatever it is. So, and that we got to kind of close up. That's part of the project, right? Like, but the fundraising's kind of like dwindling down. We're closing at the end of this month, and then we're taking the applications, and then we want to give that money away in the next, month or so. So that's a piece of it, but it's coming to an end. But like, I still don't find closure in the project. And so it's like, I don't know what this is going to be, like I was saying earlier, for next year, but I'm already excited about building a new bike. I'm going to get another frame. I already have some things I'm working on to change it, because that's my fun time and space. And then just to kind of, I don't know, but this accident is certainly making me think about like, well, maybe this is another opportunity to raise awareness for something else. And maybe it is like some sort of bike safety and like, pay attention. And like, I'm not saying like, we don't know what this kid was distracted with. Obviously there was some sort of negligence there, but like, whether it's like, I don't know, was he on his phone? Like certainly that's a big problem today with drivers. And maybe I can like, I don't know, I'm just kind of going on a tangent here, but like, in general, I'm not done with the project and I don't know what it's going to lead to, but I would love to like continue on and bring awareness to something else that's bigger and greater than anything else.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Let's have you like talk us through the accident. I know from reading that you were conscious the entire time. And yeah, for sure. I reached out to my patrons and asked them to, to send in their questions for you. And I think the overriding question here is what happened and what can we learn from this, if anything. But, I want to give you the platform to take us through that day, take us through those moments. What happened?
Yeah, sure. Actually, I was having a great day. I woke up I woke up at the bottom of Boris Pass in Breckenridge that morning. I just had a big day cutting through Colorado. Actually, I finished up late, get to a hotel at like 2 a.m. or something, but it was right at the base of Boris Pass, and I actually I waited for the continental breakfast to open and just kind of destroyed that. You know, it was kind of actually a little fancy of a place for me for a Divide hotel, but it worked out well. And so I had that. I climbed Boris Pass. I get to the top. It's like splitter day. It's classic Colorado. It's like one of the better days. I was being challenged pretty good for the 2 weeks I was out there, but that day was gorgeous. Get to the top, just kind of like doing some self documenting and changing some clothes because I'm on top of the pass. And then actually Eddie Clark comes pulling up, you know, classic. You know, he was going to do some shots and things. And so he actually leapfrogged me down into Como, which was about 30 miles away. And so basically just a big descent and awesome. And like in that terrain, once you pop over Boris Pass and then go down, you enter kind of like this big, I guess I don't know, it wouldn't be a valley, but it's like kind of a big high desert area. It's like sagebrush. It's super windy. It can generally be windy. It's big views, big line of sight because there's not big trees. Like I said, it's all sage land, and then surrounded by mountains, but views and fast moving terrain in general. I really like this area. And then get down to Hartzell, which is just like basically it's a cafe and a gas station stop. And that's Hartzell, the town, right? And it's actually on 24, so a major highway. People that have ridden the route will argue and say that 24 is absolutely a dangerous road to be on, which it is. It has since now you're not on it quite as long. You used to be on it for about 4 miles. And it's like definitely like it's a sketchy road to be on, for sure. And so nowadays you're on it for like barely maybe a half a mile, and they kind of have you skeeter around, which is nice. It was the first time I rode it that year, and I was like, this is kind of nice. I'm glad this is off this road for a change, you know. And obviously I've ridden it in the past, like I know the route. Get to Hartzell, favorite cafe, you know. I always have like these memories of being there in the past and stuff. And like even earlier, I was like, hey Eddie, I'm gonna go and like I'm grabbing lunch in Hartzell. If you wanted to like meet up there, be cool, maybe do an interview or something. And so sure enough, like sat down with Eddie, had a burger, did an interview, whatever. And then I was like, all right, hey, peace out. Thanks. Cool. Thanks for the photos. And actually even during the interview, it'd be fun to kind of see the footage, but like I even say, oh yeah, it's like a great day. I'm stoked. I'm having a 5-star, you know, can't wait to get to Salida. And like, I even pre-booked a room, like, further away. Like I booked a room like miles away, and I was like, I might get there 2 a.m. And he's like, really? You're going to get there? I was like, I'll get there. And like, so I'm just like, I'm flowing. I'm having like a good day. Yeah. And like, I have a big burger in my belly. I leave at like noon, 1 o'clock or something. And I'm like, all right, see ya. And I got like a bit of a tailwind. You go across and then you're on a dirt road again. It's just like good moving terrain. And like I said, it's sage, like you could see forever. And like, I'm just starting to get in my groove, you know, maybe an hour in or something. And I can remember kind of either being in my drops or in my aero bars. I was definitely like, I was moving fast at this point, had a bit of a tailwind, good dirt. Actually it rained ahead of me. The sun was out now, but it just rained like a little classic thunderstorm, but like the road was good and tight. And, I was just down cruising. And then the next thing, you know, I just remember like a big noise, and kind of like an explosion. Like that lasted like a split second. That's all I could remember from that. And then I don't remember the seconds in between, but I remember sliding on my eye and my head. And so that was like the end result. I don't know the seconds that took place in between. I don't know if I flipped. I don't know if I flipped with my bike. But in the end, I was away from my bike. My bike was way ahead of the car, and then I was way ahead of my bike. So I don't know how that happened. And it's it's certainly something to think about, and just kind of, you know, whatever, call it fire talk or something. But like, well, like what happened? Like, was I on it? Was I flipped on it? Because you look at my bike and you're like, what in the heck happened there? Because the bike is just destroyed. And he didn't run over the bike either. So, and then I'm separated from that. And like I said, I remember sliding on my face and then just like kind of like on the side of the road and curling up and just like screaming, like, what the fuck happened? And like, I knew my hand was like a bag of rocks. I mean, I've broken wrist before. Like, I knew I couldn't move that. My eye was already puffed shut. It was packed with gravel. I couldn't see. The very first thing I thought was like, wow, I'm losing an eye. That's literally what I first thought. I was just like on the side of the road. I was like, wow, like in the back of my head, I'm losing an eye. Sweet. And then like couldn't feel this, and I couldn't move because of my back. And then I knew my right shoulder was a mess too. So like when you can't move both arms or your back, like you're pretty like messed. Like I can move my legs, and thank God, I'm super happy for that. But there was a big chunk taken out of my leg that I get stitches in, and I was just bruised up, and like I just, and this happened so quick, and then like I'm kind of like screaming a bit, and their kid behind me like was yelling, "You got hit by a car, you're gonna be all right. You got hit by a car, you're gonna be all right." And then like he made a phone call, and then and like I said, he's a 16-year-old kid, so like he called his dad, and then there was like some bystanders that stopped. So now things are just kind of like moving forward. Bystander stops. There's another person there. And then his dad showed up, and he was some sort of like first responder medical guy type. And then they called ambulance. And by this time, there's probably about 4 or 5 people there. And like, I'm kind of like, I had to get out of the road. I'm starting to be in like some pretty hard pain. They put me in the back of the car. I started being very adamant about like, I need everything. I need everything. You need to gather all my belongings. I was being pretty loud and demanding that I needed everything. And people look around because I was like, you guys don't understand. Like, I'm not from here. I don't live here. This is all I have. I've been on the road for 2 weeks. I need all my equipment and clothes and everything. They're like, well, that bike is pretty messy. I was like, I want everything. And so the one bystander guy kind of like gathered my stuff. I seen my pack, and then I was being like adamant even about my GoPro, and like I seen all this stuff like down at my feet. And I was like, okay. And somebody was taking some pictures and taking some phone numbers and stuff. And then I just finally got moved into the ambulance, and like everything made it. Unfortunately, like my GoPro never made it. We kind of combed through the ambulance. I went to all like lost and found and ambulance and calling up the firehouse because they took my bike away. And but anyway, so they rolled me to Colorado Springs Memorial Hospital, so just like a level 1 style emergency. And then on the way to the hospital, like now I'm in good hands. I'm in the ambulance. They started giving me some like painkiller. I was pretty messed up. And then I kind of asked one of them to kind of dial my wife. And I was able to kind of like from there, just like let Tracy know. I didn't know. I just knew I needed to let somebody know, and I needed to let my wife know. And I wasn't going to let her know while I was on the side of the road, just sitting there. So when I was in the ambulance, at least she knew I was in some sort of safety. And I just had them call, and immediately I was just like, first things first, Trace, like I'm alive and talking, but I'm not all right. And I was just like, I got fucking plowed over. I'm pretty messed up. And then I have some friends out that way that were notified. And actually one of my good friends, Derek, he was at the hospital before I was even there. And then they just kind of take you through the loops, man. It's like going through the ER room's kind of a mess, man. They're just like pulling on you, poking you, sending you through CT scans. And they had to straighten out my wrist like old school style before they could even do anything. That was like super weird. And yeah, it was just like, it happens all so fast, and it's super intense, man. Like, whoa. And then like the next day I'm in the hospital, like waking up or whatever, and being discussed. You got this broke, that broke. You need to have this done and this. And they didn't feed me because we were waiting on surgery, and I'm already like in a huge deficit from riding 2 weeks, like pushing limits. I'm already light and like losing weight, and I was like starving. And then it was like, finally, they're like, okay, no surgery. And I was like, are you kidding me? Like, you strung me out for this long? And then, like, so my buddy's in there and he, like, ordered me like 3 cheeseburgers and French fries. And, like, I'm just sitting there. But what's crazy is like, the food came and I was like, dude, like, I can't feed myself. Like, literally, like, I couldn't move my arm. And I was like, this is a reality. Like, I literally can't raise a hand to my mouth. I was like, Derek, you got to feed me, dude. And, like, this was nuts. And, like, I was just like, that hit home pretty hard, you know? And like, what's crazy is the next day I had my humerus pinned and fixed. And like right after surgery, I was like almost able to get it to my mouth. And that's like pretty crazy, like the difference, you know, like go through surgery, put the plate in there and like screws, like 2 hours later, I'm almost moving again. 24 hours later, I was feeding myself. And so I was like, whoa, okay. And like the big thing is too, like you can laugh at this stuff, but like a big thing is like being able to like take care of yourself and wipe yourself, right? Like, so like, you know, feeding's one thing, but like doing that's like another. Like you don't want to ask someone to do that. Like it's kind of a nightmare of humans, right? But yeah, it was like it's still really all surreal. And going to pick up my bike afterwards was like, whoa, that was an emotional moment for sure. And then even today, like, I think I had somebody visit me the other day, and I'm kind of in my man cave here office, and the bike is here and it's a mess. And the first thing he looks at, he's like, dude, are you going to put that thing away? He's like, when are you like, put that thing away? And like the whole time he was here, he just was like, do you need help? Do you have a box? You're going to put that thing away? And like, and I just wasn't ready to let it go, I guess, or something. And like, he's right. It's like, I just need to get that thing on my site at this point. You know,
because of what it represents.
Put it away. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. What did the kid say? What did he have a reason? Was he apologetic? Was he like, did he explain from his point of view what happened? Why did he hit you? How did he hit you? Because I think you described it, but I looked on track leaders, and from what I can tell, like you said, sagebrush. It looked like the road was straight. It looked like visibility was totally fine. This is the horror of what we're talking about. Is like, this is the part that's scary, is like, this could be anybody riding on a random dirt road with good visibility, who's got decades worth of experience riding their bike safely. Smash. What the fuck?
I would describe it as like the safest place I could have been, honestly.
Yeah.
And like, when you think about it, you're like, okay, like there's like huge line of sight. So like, I'm thinking like, this kid would have seen me a mile out. This kid would have seen me 3/4 of a mile out. He would have seen me a half a mile out. He would have seen me a quarter mile out. He would have seen me 100 yards out. He would have seen me 20 yards out. So what was this kid doing all during this time? Like, there's a lot of moments to see me, right? And then you react, right? You see pedestrian, you're on a quiet country road. Like, there's no rushing. There's not traffic lights. You're not in the middle of the city where everyone's buzzing around going, like, there's plenty of time. There's not a car coming towards you. Like it's pretty clear, like, he never let off the gas, for one. Like, and who knows how fast he was going. And like, to swerve around me would have been easy enough too. But that didn't happen. So like, when I was in the car and kind of like, I was like stable, like they stabilized me while I'm waiting for the ambulance. And literally, like, I just see this kid, right? And I'm just like, dude, man, like, fucking, like, look at me. I was like, do you see what you did? And, you know, he just kind of like was just like a little bit like shy, and like kind of like turned away. And it was just like, there was like a mumble of a sorry, and like kind of like, I tried to swerve, but I swerved the wrong way. And it was like, swerve the wrong way. Okay. Like, fuck. I I don't even know what to say or do at that point. Like, I'm just trying to like, I mean, and I can't like make an excuse for the kid either. Like, what's it? Your frontal lobe's not that developed? Like, I mean, I know that's an issue and stuff, but I'm not going to blame it on that. Like, fuck, like you fucking plowed me over, dude.
Yeah. Yeah, your frontal lobes don't impact your eyesight or your ability to swerve left or right,
Or just slow down. Like,
slow down.
like,
Yeah, a
like,
lot of options there.
Yeah, so it's like, so like there wasn't a lot of reaction from him. I haven't heard any correspondence. I don't suspect I will. The kid will get a slap on the wrist and probably lose his license 6 to a year for careless driving, and that's about it. And that's how our system works. And I got to deal with like a pile of stuff between like being hurt, don't know if I'm going to be hurt down the road, disruption in life. Like, and then you think about like, it gets ugly, man. Like, I have a wife here, that's taking care of me and like disrupting. It's unfair to her. Like, she's got to go on bike ride. Like, oh yeah, it sucked. Like, Jay, I wanted you to go for a bike ride today with me. Like, I can't do that right now. Besides everything else. And she's tough and she's awesome and all that stuff. But like, everything that it affects and just the compound effects of everything it's pretty insane.
Yeah, the system that we have as it relates to the relationship between cyclist and motorist is horrific at best. And we're just lucky that we can sit here and have a conversation with you, because a lot of times what's happening is we're having these conversations about, so and X, Y, and Z, other people who have died, and you see that people get off with a slap on the wrist. Sometimes there's not even a ticket. Your guy got a ticket. He might lose his license for a couple of months, and it just, I think there's no happy bow here. There's not a happy, hey, guess what we learned, and we can all like come together as a community and feel good and move forward, and this is what we got to do. It's more of just a horrific and a gut-wrenching reality that this is the system that we have, and this is the risk that we assume as cyclists, and we are vulnerable, both from a physical standpoint, but also from like insurance to the law. Like, we are completely vulnerable, and we are the victim at every single stage. And I don't know any way to put a happy bow on that, but it's just like a reality check. Like, we are cyclists. This can happen. I don't know. Do you have any other? Do you have a happy bow or any thoughts on like what is a community?
No, man. Like, honestly, it's just like, I mean, I have to accept it. Like, life is not fair.
Yeah.
Like, life is not fair. Like, I was talking to a real good friend, known me for years, and like he's known some stuff I've been through and just my childhood and everything. And I'm just like, man, like life isn't fair, and this is like not the first time life hasn't been fair to me. And it sucks. Like my wife has a harder time accepting that than I do, I think. Like, she wants to know about like what happened and all this stuff. And I'm like, yeah, I'd like to know, but like it doesn't help. It's not going to do anything.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's not fair. And like, well, sometimes that's what it is. Like, I can't fight it. I can't fix it. There's not a Band-Aid. There's none of that. I just accept it and move on. And there again, if I want to make analogies to like my racing, it's the same thing. Like, you go on these big journeys and like, sometimes it pours rain the whole time. That's what that is.
Yeah.
Sometimes you push your bike, sometimes you break your bike, and you have all these things that are unfortunate circumstances, and you just have to get through with them. And like, sometimes there is no reason why that happened, and you can't clobber yourself by trying to figure out why, but instead you got to fix the problem and move on and get down the road.
Yeah.
And that's all I could do right now is just like, I just have to get down the road. And okay, 3 months from now, that's going to be better than now. 6 months from now is going to be better than now. Give myself some carrots and small goals and things like that. The basic stuff.
Yeah. What was your relationship with being a cyclist and interacting with cars prior to this? Because I think like as cyclists, we all have a narrative that we tell ourselves. We all inherently know that this is dangerous. We know that it's a possibility we could get hit. What was your relationship with that prior to getting hit?
Yeah, great question. Like, I grew up back east on bikes, not racing bikes, but BMX bikes, getting around, like super comfortable in cities, New York City, bumping cars, things like that. And like, just like it never worried me to be on the roads and things. And then like blooming into like a cyclist and things like that. 20s, 30s, whatever, road riding, no big deal, didn't care about it. It never bothered me. When conversations started coming up in the past, like call it 10 plus years of like, dude, aren't you worried about riding on the road? Like it still never bothered me. And I know it bothered, like, that's like becoming more and more of a topic, people not riding on roads and why gravel's so popular, this, that, and the other thing. And honestly, like it's only started bothering me the past handful of years, but like, I still pop up and over Teton Pass, which people are like, really, you go up there? That's crazy, dude. Like, but when I'm by myself, I feel so much better. Like, because then I'm only responsible for myself. I don't like riding with other people on the road, but I'm super comfortable by myself. And I've done some road ultras, for sure. And I actually time trialed the Ram route once, race across America. I did a bikepacking style while the race was going on. And I was like, that was the craziest thing I ever done. Like literally, like, cause then I had people like approach me and be like, dude, you think that should be a bikepacker? I'm like, no, it's absolutely terrible. The roads they put you on is like, it's crazy. Now I understand why they have to have vehicles behind them. And I'm like, that was like a dangerous thing for me. Like I almost died several times. I'm sleep deprived. So, and that was like, this is like way early. This is probably before 2010. So quite a while ago, but, and I've done some other road ultras after that. And then, I did Route 66 was a road ultra once. It was a bike pack ultra, Route 66 from Chicago to Santa Monica Pier. That was a crazy ride. I almost died. Like it felt like a couple of times. I was like, don't ever do this. And like early on when I time trialed Ram, actually, I had somebody reach out to me and it was actually Nathan who started the Trans-American race. Which is arguably the first like bikepacking road ultra. And he called me after he knew I did Ram. And he was like, dude, what do you think about some road bikepacking? And I was like, dude, man, I think it's dangerous. I wouldn't promote it. I was like, I'm not promoting that shit. I was like, dude, you have type A's like me that are there to rip each other's legs off and competing at a front end on public roads. I was like, bad formula, bro. I was like, people are going to die. And that was like how I ended the conversation with Nathan. And whatever, down the road, and like now we have road ultras, and granted, people have died. And so that's a fact. And so like I kind of moved away from that space, and like I had big desires to do transcontinental, Mike Hall's race. And so I'm talking to him that year, and I was like, I think I'm going to come out this year and do this. And unfortunately, it was the same year that Mike died. So I was ready to go do transcontinental that year. Mike passed away. It hit me pretty hard. And I was like, fuck. And I made an agreement to my wife and to my sponsor at the time, Salsa, a really good marketing manager of mine years ago from Salsa. He was like, he gave me a phone call and he's like, dude, man, like you have nothing to prove. Like, please don't do road ultras. And like, I got that phone call from him and my wife, and I was like, I won't do any road ultras, I swear. And so like, I made that agreement. I was like, yeah, I don't want to die that way. And I also been the person that's like, I'm probably going to die on a bike because of the amount of time I spend on a bike. Like, right. There's ratios there. Like, and I live in the mountains, and like, I know people that ski backcountry every single day, and like, your chances go up. And I've had friends die in the mountains that way. And so like, I'm not afraid to like face that either. Like, Jay, if you spend all this time on the road, like chances are like you might end up going that way. But anyway, that's a weird thought, but I'm also not afraid to face that kind of stuff and just talk about it. But anyway, so through the years, I've been comfortable, but I've also said, I'm not going to do this. So I'm pretty comfortable on the road. And I also used to be that person that like wouldn't use a rear light because I didn't want people seeing me, my competitors, and like just weird stuff. And now I'm like the guy that uses like several lights, wants to have reflective like stuff on my bike. Like it's changed for sure. Like my safety on the road has gone up. My conscious has like, it's definitely plugging in more. I don't know if it's just like because I've gotten older and I'm not quite, I value my life more. And like, you know, when you're younger, you think you're indestructible. And like, you know, those are definitely my hardcore racing days as well. But, you know, so comfortable in general with being on road systems. And I think I practice pretty good etiquette as well. Like I'm definitely like the person that's like on the road, always telling like my buddy, hey, get over, things like that. I'm just like very conscious of that.
Yeah.
And I'm not one that like drifts down, only stares at my wheel. I actually teach people to look around, like enjoy your surroundings. It's another way to enjoy your ride, besides being safe. I don't use earbuds because like I don't like taking a sense, one of my important senses away from like what I'm doing. And so it's the reason I don't wear earbuds. So I don't know. I've always felt comfortable. And like now, like honestly, like, yeah, I've thought about like, how am I going to feel now getting on that bike?
That's the next question.
Am I going to be going like this every 10 minutes and looking behind me? Am I going to get a Vira or one of those Garmin like things? Absolutely. But like, I don't know, you know, I got, I've had some backcountry skiing experiences. Like I've been caught in an avalanche before. I've been buried up to my chest, and like I've just had some different accidents in the mountains. And like after that time that I got buried, like for years, especially skiing by myself, I was constantly looking back, just like looking uphill, like just worried about that snow. And like, I don't think I'm going to be that way on the bike, but I don't know either.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah. Man, I'm at a loss because this is like a big topic that I think we all grapple with as cyclists to different degrees. And like, you know, Mike Hall was a really pivotal moment, I think, in a lot of our lives where we asked questions, looked inside. How do we feel about this? You know, how do I feel about me going out and exposing myself in this way? And then to have you get hit by a motorist, and you're hit in the afternoon on a full belly. You just saw your friend. You were in good visibility. You practice cycling etiquette and cycling safety. Ever since you got hit, I've noticed that I've had an uptick in my own awareness and my own uncomfortability with being around vehicles, and I don't know what to do with that. You know, like I relate to what you were saying about, like I've been a cyclist since I was 4. Well, I don't know when I turned into a cyclist, but I started riding bikes at 4, and it's just been a part of my life for my entire life. And I grew up riding around cars and traffic, and I know that it's a risk. But when you start to see people that you look up to who you know have years and decades of experience under their belt, that are either getting hit or hit and killed, it's scary, man. And it's like, what do we do as cyclists to overcome that fear? Because we're not going to change the system. We're not going to get phones out of people's hands. We're not going to change the laws, probably. I mean, nothing is going to happen with any immediacy, at least, right? So I don't know. It's that you have two things that I feel like you have to recover from. One, physically, but two, mentally. Like, how do you mentally allow yourself the freedom and the luxury of being able to go out and ride your bike and enjoy it and not look over your shoulder every 30 seconds or whatever it may be?
Yeah, it's like I said, you know, I don't know.
Are you worried about it? Are you worried about what your mindset will be, or?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, especially because it is like, you know, it's definitely like, it's my medicine. You know, I need to ride bikes. You know, like, it's my outlet. It's my creative space. It's a lot of things. You know, it's a fun thing for me. It's like, it's not the living I used to like make it, and actually I'm thankful for that because I enjoy it even more so. But it's just really interesting, and I don't know. It's like, you know, there's also, maybe I got to look at it in a way of like, sometimes it's good not to know things, right? Like, you know, uh,
And
instead of like,
when do we
yeah, I
are
don't,
when do we know everything anyway, right? We like think we
yeah.
know things. You thought you were going to finish that ride. I mean, but like how much control do we have all the time anyway? And yeah, it's a deeper philosophical question, but yeah, not knowing the answer maybe is, well, it is what it is, so it has to be okay. Yeah. Well, yeah. I don't know. I mean, I think the important thing is everybody. I don't want to scare anyone, but I think that it's a good reminder or a bad reminder. It is a reminder of the reality of what we do and one of the potential outcomes. And ultimately, I think that it's important that every person has the conversation with themselves the way that you have, the way that you will continue to. And you have to be aware of that, and ultimately it comes down to you. It's the same way as your relationship with your doctor. Like, you're in control of your body and your brain, and it's kind of up to you where you land on how you want to use it. But these are realities that cyclists need to be aware of. I think, as sad and horrific and fucked up as it is, that is actually the way it is.
Yeah, and it's like, it's funny. Like, I could just like tell stories and this and that. It's like, I'm doing the ride and I'm like, oh yeah, and that night that I had a ride over into Butte and go over there's Lava Mountain is what it's called, and it's this super rocky, heinous kind of road on the divide that kind of spits you down into Butte, and it's like a big mountain pass, and it's horrific. It's like big boulders, like I said, and like um, and it was pouring rain when I did it, right? Like torrential rain, middle of the night, 2 a.m. You're like, this is a bad scenario. Like going down this mountain with big boulders, and it's like, yeah, I made it through that, no problem. You know, I made it like through the cities, no problem. And you do all these things that you think are like dangerous or like where you could have gotten into an accident, and then you're like, oh yeah, that's where I got hit. Like, that will blow someone's mind. If I was to like take a ride with somebody down there and go past to like where I got hit and be like, yeah, I got hit right here. I mean, like, that would not be believable.
Yeah. Yeah, it is unbelievable, and that's the scary part about it. That is what makes this so scary. It's like it would be different if you fell off the edge of a mountain because you were doing something gnarly whenever you were sleep deprived and you were rained on and whatever, and you slipped. Fine, we can like rationalize that and accept that a little bit better. But to just get hit in broad daylight on a straight road, it's like fuck. It's just fucked.
Yeah, that's kind of frustrating. Like, because my other accidents, I could blame on myself.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, it's like, but that part of it can be frustrating. So,
let's talk about Unearthed. We started with the meat and potatoes, but I mean, like, I know this was a big project to you. What is Unearthed? Like, tell us about the project itself. What is it? Why'd you decide to do it?
Yeah, so I'm no stranger to the Great Divide mountain bike route. Obviously, I mean, I've been riding it since 2007. So I've raced it 7 times, ridden it on a tandem. I've ridden it on different bikes, and I live 30 miles from the route. I've toured on it. I've taken clients out on it, and so it's this trail that I like absolutely love and been addicted to for a long time. And then there's a piece to it like. I like to test equipment and different ideas and different strategies. And so I was really interested in bringing a long wheelbase bike down the route, a mid-tail bike, if you will. And so it really stems from that. Several years ago, I rode a mid-tail bike across Alaska, and I just learned all these little nuances with the bike and just like the positives about the bike that I seen. And so then I just got like really curious. I was like, this would be fun to do in the summer. I was like, I want a mid-tail bike. I want this gravel adventure bike for the summer, and I want to ride the Divide on it just to kind of see what it does. And then I was like, well, if I ride the Divide again, like I need to do it for like other reasons. Like I need to figure something out. Like what's gonna like be good in my heart and my head. And I was like, well, I could raise some money. Okay, let's not just pick like a random nonprofit out of the sky. So I know Rebecca Rush quite well, and she's got her kind of nonprofit that she started a handful of years ago. And I was like, reached out to her, and I was like, hey, let's raise some money like for your organization. What's that look like? And she's like, well, we could do it like this, and we could raise some like money for bike pack scholarships or however you want. You structure it. I was like, okay, yeah, let's do it. So that was a good feeling piece, a feel good piece. And then, going back to the route, I wanted to like talk about Adventure Cycling Association. I didn't like what I was doing. I was riding the Great Divide mountain bike route and not doing the Tour Divide. I see like the Tour Divide has like morphed and has become this thing that is so big, it kind of almost drowns the Great Divide mountain bike route because everyone just like continually says Tour Divide. And even when they reference the Great Divide mountain bike route, they still reference it Tour Divide. And the Tour Divide is basically an event. And there's a lot of misleading information.
Actually, just why don't you clear it up? Because I think this, I hear the same or same statement you're making. The difference between the Great Divide mountain bike route and the Tour Divide, just so everybody knows what the distinction is.
Yeah, the Great Divide mountain bike route was created by Adventure Cycling Association, which is a nonprofit organization that creates that has been a big supporter of touring cyclists, basically. And they started by making road tours and different routes, and so the Great Divide mountain bike route was their very first kind of dirt road tour. And so they are kind of the brains behind it. They created it. And then what as the Tour Divide today is actually an event and a race that takes place on the route, but not 100% on the route. So there's different deviations. There's been some changes through the years. And it's different than what it really started out as well, I would say, because now it is this bucket list ride item. And I think it's an amazing thing what this Tour Divide has done. I mean, first iteration, it was the Great Divide mountain bike race, and it went from border to border. Second iteration was the Tour Divide when it starts in Banff. And so, but the actual Great Divide mountain bike route, the Adventure Cycling Association actually starts in Jasper. So it's actually it's actually almost 500 miles north of Banff.
When did they add Jasper as the starting point?
About 18.
Okay.
2018.
And so has anyone ridden has anyone set an ITT on the
so that was the
route?
thing. So that was a thing. And I think back of when John Stampstead, the very first person who time trialed the route, he looked at Adventure Cycling Association's route and it went border to border. And that's what he time trialed. And so I kind of almost brought myself back to that moment and was like, well, today, what would John Stampstead do if he was to look at the Adventure Cycling Association route? Well, it goes from Jasper. And so it just made sense to kind of do that, especially in trying to bring light to the Great Divide mountain bike route and not necessarily this Tour Divide. Because there is a lot of different, there's some confusion there. Because I even polled the audience once and said I was trying to give props to the Adventure Cycling Association and said, hey, if you ride the Tour Divide, you should probably make a donation to Adventure Cycling Association. And I thought that was a fair trade a little bit and ask. And I was like, how many people actually even know that Adventure Cycling? And so it was kind of amazing. Not a lot of people knew that. And I got a lot of thanks for it. And even through my project, as we kept shining light and differences and showing what that was, people were really appreciating that knowledge because it is kind of lost and has been lost. And so anyway, so that was my reason starting from Jasper and doing the whole thing and doing actually 100% Adventure Cycling Association route, not these deviations that the Tour Divide does. And so and honestly, I was setting that up for other like young bucks who want to challenge the route or my time, now I was giving them something to challenge with no question. It's like, not which route do you do, because the Tour Divide has had different things, and people are like, well, do you do Coco Claims or you do the Flathead Valley? And not that the audience knows what these are, but these are two different routes with on the Tour Divide that people ask when people are looking to set a record or challenge the time. They're like, well, which way should I go? Or what about this? And what about this alternate? Or what about the weather? And this gets shut down in mud. Like, I was trying to get rid of all of that, because that only happens like in the Tour Divide, which could really only happen, which I think, like, honestly, you can only win the Tour Divide. And I don't think people should be able to set the record on Tour Divide. And so I was trying to set this template up to be like, oh, you want to do a record on the Great Divide mountain bike route? Well, here it is, because Jay did this. And it goes from Jasper to the finish. And all you got to do is follow the ACA route 100%. No questions. Super simple. A very easy formula for someone who wants to do an FKT. There it is. I was just like trying to put that out there. And then I was also leaving space for people to up the ante, because I think that is important when people are doing challenging records and wanting to do FKTs. If there's an opportunity to do something harder or longer, I think they should. That comes down in the climbing world. When people set these routes in the climbing world, Joe will go do this route and he'll claim this route. Well, the second guy will look at the route and be like, I'm going to do this variation, which is going to be harder. And so then they up it. And so I was doing the main route. I was doing the main ACA route. And there's also alternates on that route. So if somebody wanted to like chase that record, but then up it and be like, hey man, we're going to do this, but we're going to do the Flathead Valley. Perfect. So that gives that opportunity to kind of raise the bar. And then the next person would have to do the Flathead Valley and the route. And so I think it just like creates this, this groundwork and like respecting each other as well. And also respecting the space of fastest known times and keeping things consistent. In some years, you just can't do it. If weather doesn't let you, or if a fire doesn't let you, that's just the nature. And I believe it's the allure in the route of being like, am I going to be able to get a clean run? Like, that's a question, because you don't always get a clear. That's not always the case. So as a challenger, you got to accept that. Like, honestly, I've been super lucky. Like, I've had 7 clean runs.
Wow.
With no alternates. Doing the Tour Divide, like how I was supposed to do it. Like, you know, this time I was kind of like I was challenged with that stuff. And that was neat. It was a new experience for me. I had to deal with the fire. And just like different things along the way, which was it was neat for me, actually. Like, I'm glad I didn't have an easy run, because I feel so fortunate for my first 7. Not that they were easy.
Well, but sure, but you had good weather.
The challenges were less, yeah. But so anyway, like going back to like the Unearthed, like that was like kind of the thinking behind it and doing my own thing. And then like a film piece, like, you know, I had agreements and like, we still like doing like interviews with like Mac McCoy, who created the route from ACA, you know, interviews with like John Stamstead, the first person who time trialed the route. And other iconic people were being interviewed for this film piece. And then me self-shooting it. And I was doing interviews with like lodge owners and people touring it along the way. And so I really thought there was going to be this like really cool, like piece in the end that would have been a documentary style, but like educational, historic piece and a little bit of me. I didn't want it all about me. I wanted it more of like this piece that honestly to help clean some of this air that can be so confusing that's out there. And all these other people putting out misleading information as well, and just using the acronyms as if they're one, you know, TD, Tour Divide, / GDMBR, Great Divide Mountain Bike Route. And it's okay for that confusion to be out there. It just means that we there's space for education.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's a better way to have a better conversation and a really good conversation than when people know kind of history.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I love it. I'm going to tell you in a little while about another project I'm working on in a similar vein to that. But I'm curious now, like, was there any this confusion that you're talking about between Great Divide Mountain Bike Route and the Tour Divide? Is what you were doing an effort to show a better way, or was it just to show a different way?
To show a way.
Just to show a way, yeah.
To show a way, like,
so it's not saying anything wrong with the Tour Divide, the what they got going on. Yeah,
there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, and it should remain the way it is. Because it's done so much for sport, and it's so easily recognized. Just the word Tour Divide, and it, like I said, it's done so much positive. So it shouldn't change, but people should know that has changed, like, because like what it was when I first started in 2007 is it's different than what it is today, and that's okay. Like I said, I'm not saying anything's bad because something's different or something has changed. Things have progressed. Things have changed. Okay, like accept the change, and that's okay. And look at all the positive it's done, but just know that there was change. And, in an effort to kind of, and I'm not necessarily trying to bring back the old school ways by any means, but like, what does it really mean to do an FKT? Or what does it mean to establish a route that can have an FKT on? It has to be super consistent.
Yeah.
For one, and that's consistent. And so what I was doing, I just thought that was like a very simple way. And like I said, in the end, like my time wasn't going to be the fastest. Like, sure, I can put down a decent time, but like, I'm 51 years old. Like, I want to do this because like, I want someone else to chase that.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden that is like the ticket, because like if someone tries to go after the FKT on the TD, on the Tour Divide, it's a tough one.
Yeah. I'm so glad you brought that up.
You could do the race.
I'm so glad you brought that up. How should we as a community look at, specifically Mike Hall's FKT on the Tour Divide, but now, Uba just set a really fast time, but it was on a different route than Mike Hall's. And he and I are having the conversation, like, who decides? Like, who decides who has the fastest time? Like, what is the protocol there? So, yeah, add your wisdom to that conversation, please.
Yeah, and that's why I think it's like another time for change. And that's okay. And I think people just need to understand, like, you can't, like, let's just, first of all, take Mike Hall's number and retire it. Like, let's just put him on the shelf.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's done. That's established. Like, just like retiring a number in football. Like, nobody gets that number anymore. Like, stop trying to chase that time, because the time can't be compared because the route's different right now. So, okay, so that exists. Okay, so now you can win the Tour Divide, but like more often than not, they're not even following like what's supposed to be the route. A couple of years ago, Sofiane was going fast, but then had fire detours. The boys went super fast this year, but had some weather and things like that. And that's okay to talk about. Like, I think it's okay to add that in the end. Like, he won, but he also had 6 days of snow, sat in the basin for 24 hours, like, or whatever. It's okay to say those things.
Yeah.
But like, and that's during the divide itself. That's, and when I say Tour Divide, I'm saying that means you left on the Grand Depart Day, second Friday in June. And okay, so that's what you did. Now it's apples to apples with all those people racing, but they're all racing against each other. And that also has a different flavor and feel than what a true FKT is when you're by yourself. Like that's a different game in general. And then when you don't have a consistent route when you don't have a consistent route to do, like what do you do? And so I think going back and saying, well, just do ACA route. That's really simple. And that's kind of what I was trying to do, I guess, in a way. And just dangle the carrot out there. And let's face it, like the percentage of people that chase that FKT stuff is so small. And they really are individuals. And there's only going to be a few. But give them something to chase. We're out there. And I don't think you can chase the Tour Divide that way as you can just by saying ACA route, GDMBR. It starts in Jasper. That's legit.
Yeah.
And I've even had this conversation with Matthew. Like Matthew's a friend of mine. Like we definitely go back and forth. And like I put him like on the spot a lot. And because like if we want to talk about a little history here, like the reason it moved to Banff was because Matthew Lee moved it to Banff when ACA extended their route to Banff. So Adventure Cycling Association extended the route to Banff. Matthew's like, all right, boys, like I'm going to start a new event. And so now the route's longer. We're going to make it longer. And so he starts in Banff. Okay, fair enough. Well, I said, hey, Matthew Lee. Hey, man, ACA just extended the route to Jasper. Why aren't we going to Jasper? Come on, why aren't we going to Jasper? And he doesn't really have an answer for me.
So I want to know what his answer is.
I'm doing to him what he did to the previous organizers.
Yeah.
Right? And so I just laugh at it. He's like, well, like logistically to get up there, it's a little tough. And I'm like, Matthew, that's bullshit, because anyone that's going for a bike ride for 3 weeks, it doesn't matter. Like they're going to get to the start no matter what.
Yeah.
And then when I was up there this year, I was like looking at the hotels and everything. I was like, this place can handle this. I was like, dude, this is like such BS. And I just started laughing and that's fine. And like, honestly, like, I don't think it should move. Like the Tour Divide is what it is. It put its stake in the ground. It's already got some deviations. Like, no, it shouldn't extend to Jasper. Like, because if you're going to do that, then fix everything else. Like, bring everything else back to ACA. But we're not going to do that. So let it be.
Yeah.
And let it keep making it changes. Honestly, that's fine.
And then have it just be standalone. Each year is its own grand depart, and each year those times will stand alone based on the weather, whatever the route is that year, and those will be standalone times, and that's great. Good job.
Yeah, because it's also going to be the situation too of like, like I just think it's weird if somebody now says they want to go for the TD record, right?
Yeah.
So then what they're going to do is chase Mike Hall's record. That means his route as well, which isn't the route of today's TD. And that just seems a little like strange to me a little bit, because like, so only the people. So if you're racing the TD, does that mean you don't have a shot at the record? Because you're not following Mike Hall's record, and you don't. It's a weird space.
It is a weird space because you're just like, okay, I'm going to pick 2015 version of this route. I'm going to race that one. And then someone could come along and be like, I want to try the 2018 version of the route. And then you establish it gets real muddy real quick.
Yeah. And so that's why I think it's just like, okay, if you want to set the Great Divide mountain bike route.
Yeah, it's simple.
It's simple. You follow the ACA route.
Yeah.
And there's like no confusion there. Cool. And I think, and honestly, there's an attraction for people like that, that small percentage that I talk about, because also like we're adding 500 miles to it. Like that's attractive immediately.
Yeah.
for that person that chases that. They're like, ooh, longer? Like, who doesn't want to go longer? Like,
oh yeah,
I'm certainly that guy. Like, I don't chase that stuff like I used to, but if I bring myself down to the 35-year-old Jay, like where it was like looking for routes to chase records on, like that would be more attractive for me, honestly. Like, I would skip the Tour de Divide and be like, no, I want to go do this.
Yeah.
Unless you want like the camaraderie of the people, which is awesome, but it's still a different game.
Let's talk about your bike.
Yeah, dude.
That was another fun spin on the Great Divide mountain bike route. Not only did you start in Jasper, but you did it on a very unique bike setup that I know you're pretty stoked on. So kind of the cool thing is, one, you can tell us about the bike, but you can also tell us how it was performing and what you might change going forward on it. So yeah, let's hear it.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm familiar with long bikes already. Like, I ride tandems and have a lot of experience with tandems, actually. So that's one level of experience with a long bike. And then, the mid-tail bike, the Salsa Blackboro that I rode 1,000 miles across Alaska in the winter was another big experience for me. And so now when I was looking to have this experience, like I said earlier in the show, I was actually looking to have one built this year. Like, I was like, because I've been thinking about this for years. So it's like finally, like, it was in my brain. And then this year I was like, I'm doing it. I'm going to get that bike made. And so I was knocking on builders' doors. And then all of a sudden, I got a picture of this bike in my inbox. And I was like, okay, this is easy. I need that bike. And so it turned out to be Esker, obviously, no secret. And they had one just lying around that they've been messing with. Tim, the owner's been messing with. And I know Tim. And I was like, dude, man, like, I got this product. I want to ride this thing down the Divide. I really want to learn about this. I think I could pack it different. I think it's got these subtle things that, like, you don't really know only add up over this big, long ride. Like, sure, man, sounds good. I'll get you one. Okay. But then it was like built pretty specific, like all the things I've learned, drop bars with 3 different shifting positions. I put a suspension fork on, which I haven't done since my second Divide on a tandem in 2009. I haven't run a suspension since then, but now I know the value of suspension. I put more weight on that. So, like, I put a suspension fork on, and then just the way I had it kitted out as far as luggage and placement of my gear is pretty thought out and specific. And I wasn't carrying a sleeping system. I just know the route so well. The little cubbies I could sleep in, the lodges, and there's more services out there than there ever was. Which means there's more places to sleep. So it was a really fun build in general. There's a couple of things I will change moving forward with the build. I am going to build another one. And a couple of small things was, actually Redshift makes this 2-position seat post that I really want to put on there. I got this bike a week before I left on the ride, which was absolutely nuts. So I had no experience on it, had no time to dial it in. I got the friggin' thing a week before, scrambling to put it on, realize I have boost hubs with a non-boost fork. I'm friggin' drilling holes in the frame to run wires. I'm having shit overnighted because of compatibility, and like things were nuts for like 6 days before I left. That's all I had the bike for. I got it on a Thursday. I left that next Thursday. Wow. So I had like 0 time on the bike. So no dial-in time, but it's not like I haven't done this before, and it's not like I don't have no experience. I went with it. I'm comfortable with it. There's some anxiety for sure, but I made it happen. And so there was just some small things that I didn't get to do. Like, people are like, dude, you're running a 34 120 step cast. I was like, yeah, a little much, but I wanted like 100 mil fork, but it's what I had, and it's what I had to make the bike work, and that's okay. And then, I'm a big fan of Viscoset headsets, which I didn't put on here, which I was so mad about every time. And a Viscoset is like a binding headset almost. It keeps the front end from like flopping. It gives you stability and steering. I've been putting it on all of my adventure bikes. There again, I discovered it a few years back. And I put it on all bikes. I didn't put it on this bike, and I was so mad at myself the whole time because the front end was moving when I'm just trying to shift and do things and work on my bike. And so just a few like part things. That's a couple of them. And then I am going to mess around with a little bit more of a strategic bag setup on it. But other than that, I love the way it rode. And I keep going back to this, and I need to come up with different terminology, but it's like, it's easy for me to say stable. And that's an easy thing for someone to realize and be like, well, of course it is. It's a long bike. Of course it's going to be more stable. But stable goes deeper than that. Stable means it's quieter on the trail. Stable means it doesn't take as much work or energy for me to move the bike around. Stable means it's faster and quieter on the downhills. I don't have to ginger around things. The bike stays quiet instead of just like popping all over. I don't need to control it as much. And then the way I had the weight on it, like zero swing weight. Like I had people get on the bike and be like, dude, it doesn't even feel like you have a load on here because there's nothing above the tire. So not only didn't have a rack is going to sway, a seat bag is going to have weight in it. It makes the whole bike sway. Like, and I'm an out of the saddle rider and I can like move a bike and like, there's no feedback on that. So it's just super quiet. And like, I really enjoyed that. Like there's all these things that add up, but you're like, no, I'm going faster than I could on a regular bike, or I'm being less fatigued than I would be on a traditional bike. And then with suspension fork, like you could just charge. Like between suspension fork and it being a mid-tail bike, like I've never gone faster or more comfortable on the downhills in a Divide run in my life. And so like, okay, so positive. Okay, so what's the negative? I don't know. Like, oh wait, here's the negative. I can't rip around corners.
Yeah.
I'm not ripping around corners.
Yeah, you're enough. On the Tour Divide. No, you're on the Great Divide mountain bike route.
You're going straight for 3,000 miles. I don't need a quick responding bike.
For sure.
That's what it is. So I will say, like, I felt a slight bit of lag at first, like when you think you're just going to like hop on the bike and give it some and it's going to react, like, yeah, I could feel like this second of delay, but like once things are moving, that's gone.
Right.
Like, right. Like, yeah, it's not road race geometry where when you get on the bike, you feel the bike move. But that's okay because like, I'm not looking to take the sprint. So the things that I can kind of like pry out of it and dig out of it that might be a negative, they don't apply in this situation. So it's very purpose built for a very singular purpose. And that was the Great Divide mountain bike route.
Yeah.
And to hone something in on that specifically is like pretty neat. And like, I feel myself being very fortunate, spoiled, lucky to be able to do something like that. Like, dude, like build the best Great Divide mountain bike route you can bike with no other reason to build the bike. When you could put that kind of focus into something, it's pretty neat. And I learned like 2,000 miles. I got to ride the bike, and I learned a bit from it. And and I'm not gonna I'm gonna continue to work with this frame and this project.
That's exciting.
Yeah, it is exciting. It's neat. It's neat. And you know, like it's fun for me to see, like when I first rode the Blackborough across Alaska, like spoke about it. I did it. I believed in it. Wasn't bullshit. I wasn't being paid to say these things. Like I'm a pretty genuine, like straight up dude, like sponsored or not, I'm going to talk about the product, how I feel about it. If the sponsor doesn't like it, well, sorry, then I'm probably not the right person for you. And that's fine. And it's fun to see how many mid-tail bikes now actually do that ride.
Right. The ITI.
Yeah. It's fun for me to see. And it's fun for me to see like another brand starting to make the bike. And I know where that comes from.
And it'll be curious in 5 or 10 years from now when like half the field is always on, I'll be all on mid-tails, you know, that'll be another feather in the cap, maybe.
It's just neat. Like, and obviously like, I love to spend time with that stuff and tinkering and looking at things differently. I'm not afraid to try something different. Like I've been successful with a lot of my bikepacking events and what I've done in racing and have won events, whatever, but like, I'll go back and still do it different. Like even if I've been successful with something one way, it's just like I still try something different within the gear, the bike, what I bring, my strategy, how I pack. It's like I'm still not done playing with that stuff. Like I'm like a little kid with it, and like that's honestly what's been keeping me going for all these years.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, so maybe that's one of the only good things about your current situation is you have a lot of time to, at least in your mind, play with and start to prepare and plan for Unearthed 2.0. I don't know what you're going to call it, but you know, best case scenario, you know, if everything goes the way you would like it to go, when do you think that you would like to take another stab at this event, at this ride?
Yeah, I've been like softly thinking about it. I have some other life stuff going on as well too. So like scheduling something like this is pretty tough. Summers are busy for me with some other work, but yeah, I don't know. Like there's going to be a stab at it. I just don't know when. Like I like the time I left this year. I like going on my own time. You know, I know there could be some like fun to be had if I was to go in a similar time as the grand depart of the Tour Divide. There could be some like cool, just like layover type stuff and how it intermingles and not like different times when I'm en route and not en route and being a part of that camaraderie. And actually, it could be an opportunity to bring even more attention to the project and meaning more attention to Adventure Cycling Association and their route. And like, so that like, it's really more about that. It's like not about like bringing attention to me, but like, how can I bring like how can I maximize this and what do I do to set the project up for its most success, bringing more attention to like the route itself and the history and this other stuff that I think is important and not me doing the ride itself, but this other stuff. And so an overlay with the TDs would certainly make sense, right? Like I can't ignore that. But I don't know if I'm ready then. And honestly, like whenever people approach me and talk about like leaving on the actual divide and things like that, like I'm the first to say, are you sure you want to do the grand depart? Because I think it's the worst date you can possibly leave. Like I'm pretty much like straightforward with anybody that like calls and like asks me about, hey, I want to do the divide, this and that. Like, yeah, are you really like married to this grand departure? Because like it's really not that great of a date. I'm just saying. So I don't know. And so I like to do things that make sense for myself as well.
Yeah, for sure. Well, yeah, whenever that day comes, I know we'll all be excited for it. And I could see, yeah, not to, just to help promulgate the message that you're trying to showcase between the two different routes, doing it at a same or similar time as the Tour Divide is a good way to showcase, hey, this is a route, this is a race that's happening, and we also have a route that's happening, you know, and they're both existing. They're both here. And I think helping to clear up some of that is valuable. And it actually, we've touched on it briefly here and there throughout this conversation, but it speaks to a larger conversation about the history of bikepacking, the history of this sport, you know, where the rules and the ethics and the ethos and everything came from. And I know you've mentioned that was part of your project, was to help fill in some of the historicity of the Tour Divide. As a podcaster and somebody who wants to help preserve the history and make sure that as new people come to bikepacking, that they understand the space that they're stepping into and at least understand and respect the history of where we came from. So like me and my small little team, I'm starting to work on a project to also help fill in the history of bike packing at large. And we're just now starting to put the frameworks on like what that would look like. But I'd like to formally ask you if you'd like to be a part of that and just be a guest whenever I do that podcast, because I'd like to talk to like you and John Stamstead and I can't remember the gentleman's name over at the ACA that developed the route, and Matthew Lee, and and maybe Kirsten at Brush Mountain Lodge. Like I really want to help make sure that we don't lose the history and that we know how we got here. And I'll be honest, like I joined the community 6 years ago. So like there's a lot that I don't know that I'd like to have a better understanding and appreciation for. And I know you got your own project working on, but I think, my thought is like the more information, the better, the more we can help educate people and fill in blank spots and why is it this way? And even the conversation, like there's so many things. I guess I'm kind of apologizing because like we could have a 5-hour podcast today because we could talk about media. We could talk about, all these different races. We could talk about them being held on public lands and what it looks like for an organization to potentially come in. Like there's so many conversations that I would like to have with you. And I guess what I'm asking is, if you'd be open to tabling some of those and maybe we can chat sometime in the future and really have a larger conversation about bike packing, where it came from, its history, and how we think about it,
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think it's awesome that you're going to take that on. I mean, sounds like you're just kind of painting that picture now for yourselves and things like that, but it sounds really cool. I mean, I'm definitely like, I'm vocal in that area, and like, I'm not afraid to be. And like, I like sport a lot. I'm super passionate about it. So like something like that, like I'm more than happy just to share my experiences. And that's all it is like, like I'm not the grand poobah of like bike packing by any means. Like I'm just someone who's been around it for a long time and has experience in a lot of different events and around the world and organized events, unorganized events. And that's all I have to share and see. And I've been around and seen change and like what it meant to like not race being tracked, like from all these different things. And those are fun things. And I'm not against where sport is today either.
Yeah.
And it's like, there again, like going back to the history of it though, is like super important. So like, anyway, yeah, I'd be more than happy to just give you my take on some of that for sure.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Yeah, it's not about the cool thing about bike packing is that there isn't a organization that's in charge, which is awesome, right? But
for sure.
I think it, but in lieu of that, we don't have an official record keeper. We don't have official rules. We don't, and I'm not advocating for that. But what I am advocating for is I want to make sure that me and anybody else who's interested that wants to come into this space understands how we got here. And, it's up to you to like honor the past and decide where you want to fit in. And it's not about telling people how to do it. It's just saying, hey, I want to collect the history before, heaven, goddamn, you lived through this bike wreck. But, I mean, like I can't talk to Mike Hall anymore. I think that it's important. And I would like, through whatever effort I can with this little podcast to piece together a work. Like I've talked to John Stamstead about coming on to speak to this as well. And I think that, I think it could just do value in the community to just have an understanding of where we came from, what is the history, so that when people come into the space, they know what the space is that they're in and they can appreciate it. And it's not about telling people do it this way or you're wrong or you're right. It's just, it's about educating and informing. And then that's the great thing is people get to make up their own minds about how they do it. But I think clearing up confusion and having an understanding of our history just has merit and value by itself,
It's huge. Like I think actually like one of the biggest things is like Tour Divide itself has had such a big impact on bike packing. But like people want to follow, like you'll often hear people be like Tour Divide rules. You'll hear people say that when they talk about events and things like that. The thing is, like, Tour Divide is very unique in its own self. It's like nothing could be replicated. You can't have another Tour Divide. There's never going to be another event like it. And even when it comes down to the rules and ethos and ethics and whatever's written there and bullet pointed, like none of that, no other events really follow that or can be like, or they can even follow that, because like there's no one that really enforces those things. The community does with Tour Divide. Any other event is going to be an organized event, or there's going to be someone that's running it and that is going to actually enforce those bullet points. Tour Divide doesn't have that. Nobody enforces that. But yet everyone wants to look at it as this great example and follow its rules, but you can't. And there again, nobody enforces those, but the community does. And that's where people get confused. And like a lot of people need and want rules. And like you can have that. There's plenty of organized events. Like go do a Nelson Trees event, or go do there's so many now, right? There's hundreds of events, and like there's organizers to them. There's actually race directors to them. Understand this, people. Like bikepacking is not like, these people have race directors and you sign manuals and the rules are deep. That's what you're following. You're not following Tour Divide. You're following that race director's rules.
Right.
And then like, even like the OG events, like even like the AZT in Colorado Trail, like they do still have somebody kind of enforcing the rules and calling people out on stuff. There still is an organizer for each one of those. But there isn't for the Tour Divide. Yeah. It's a very unique thing, but they want to follow it. And everyone just needs to know that it's its own thing.
Yeah. and that's what I say on the podcast a lot is like, and good. Like one thing that this community I think does well is like respect and appreciate different modalities of doing the same thing. Like we're not all kitted up the same. Our bikes aren't all the same. Like we love self-expression and we love doing it our own way. And that's why I kind of tell people, like, look at events is like, you know, that's kind of the fun part is you can go to this event and it's going to be like this person, this race director set up this way. You can go to Tour Divide and Matthew Lee, you referenced him as a disorganizer, which I really liked on one of your posts that I read on social media. But we don't need it to all be one way. You know, I think celebrating the diversity of this sport is the cool thing. And it is cool that you can do it 100 different ways in 100 different places, right? Like that's cool.
I think it's awesome.
Fucking great. Yeah. So, but the only downside is that I think it gets, I don't want to use messy is the wrong word, but just people get confused and people like, just confused.
And they have every right to be.
Yeah.
They have every right to be confused. Like if all of a sudden, like you just learned about like Tour Divide or Great Divide mountain bike route, and like all of a sudden you're going down the hole and you're like watching these different like programs or videos and this like that, like you could definitely easily be misled or different information. And then you're talking to someone that's like super educated on it and they're like, whoa, like there's, yeah.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Which is why I want to, it's like, I think I have a decent feel for the history, but I could still, there's always more to learn and I love learning. Right. But as I've done this, I've been doing the podcast for 5 years now. I'm noticing, I'm sure you are, that this is growing. You know, more and more and more people are being attracted to bikepacking. And as we introduce new people in, I think we have a responsibility to educate and to inform to the best of our ability, you know, and then I think you give the community the tools to be good stewards and good members, right? It's not telling you what to do. It's explaining where we are, how we got here, and now you're educated and now you are a steward of the ethos and the history of the sport, you know?
Totally. I agree.
Cool. Well, we'll table that, man. I'm excited to have that conversation. It's something that in the recent past few months is something that I've started to talk with my teammate behind the scenes here. That's
Cool.
the project that I'm going to be working on. So it would be very meaningful to have your voice added to that conversation for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I'd love to.
All right, Jay. Well, thank you. Thanks for coming on the podcast.
For sure.
I'm deeply sorry that you were a victim and were hit on your bike. I mean, this is like the worst case. And I guess worst case is you're dead. Second worst case is that you're dealing with medical bills and recovery and not being able to do the thing that you love absolutely the most. And so, heart goes out to you, man. All the best with your recovery, and look forward to seeing you back on the bike sooner rather than later for sure.
Cool. Thanks, Patrick. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Jay. We'll talk soon.
Okay. Ciao.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode, and a special shout out goes to Jay Petervary. We're all rooting for you and looking forward to seeing you back on the bike as soon as possible. All right, well, I am heading out on a little ITT of the Central Texas Showdown route. Today is Tuesday. I'm going to leave Thursday morning at about 8 a.m. I mean, I don't have an exact start time. I'm riding with my friend Ariel, and we're going to just wake up that morning, pack our shit, and get on the road. So it could be 7 a.m., it could be 8 a.m., it could be 9 a.m., but we're going to get on our bikes and we're going to ride those damn things. So we're taking on the 475-mile Showdown route. This is taking place 2 weeks before we actually do the Showdown event, and I'm probably equal parts nervous and scared. 475 miles, that's a poke. It's been since 2018 whenever I rode 500 miles. And we'll see. I'm excited. The exciting part is just always seeing like where you're at. Like I always say on the podcast, like the only way to find out where you're at in an endurance effort is to go out there and test yourself and push yourself. And because of the unknown factor of it, it's always a little scary. It's always like, can I do this? Do I want to do this? Why am I doing this? Normal questions. But I am looking forward to it. And of course, I'm going to be recording my experience and taking you along for the ride. So whether you're interested in bikepacking or that route in particular, that episode might be interesting to you. But highs, lows, the good times, the bad times, no matter what happens, I'll be taking you along for the ride. And it'll be nice to have some company out there. It's kind of interesting. Like there's so many people who listen to my podcast while they're on their rides. But I'm actually going to be making one of my podcasts on one of my rides. So a little inversion there. All right. Well, that's about it for me. I do want to send a quick reminder that we have 33 spots left for the East Texas Showdown registration, which is awesome. I'm so glad that it's actually still open. Last year it sold out so fast that there was so many people that were like, oh my gosh, I couldn't get in. It sold out too fast. And I felt really bad. But this year I'm excited because there's no excuses. I think we've had registration. Yeah, registration's been open for like 5 days. It'll close, I mean, we'll definitely like sell it out. I have no doubt. But at least this time, even the slow pokes, even the pro slows among us are going to be able to get a spot. So that makes me happy. And if you are one of those slow people that doesn't want to be left behind and wants to ride your damn bikes with me and my friends in the East Texas Piney Woods, I recommend you head over to bikereg.com and search for Showdown, or you can go to texasshowdownseries.com and all the information is available there for you. And that's it. I hope to see you there. And I really appreciate you tuning into today's episode. And I hope you enjoyed that chat with Jay. Maybe send him a message of well wishes. I'm sure he'd appreciate it. All right. And until next week, friends, you know what to do. Go ride your damn bike.